New world, though, right now. We're going to talk about it. This is going to be a really important one to watch.
Information that's simple to understand, straightforward, and on the money.
Fox Business. Opportunity. Pure and simple.
Well, you want to know the hottest job right now, the hottest field right now? It's not high tech or engineering, certainly not finance or clearly journalism. Try government. Yeah, the government. About the only folks hiring and the only industry growing. I kid you not. So what do my Fox Biz All-Stars make of that? Well, they've all become government workers. Jonathan Honig, Mark Taggi, Kevin Kerr, and Tracy Baines. Kevin, what do you make of that?
Well, it's absolutely a growth industry. We're seeing it every week as we see jobs drop for the rest of us. We see government jobs increase. You got to have somebody to produce all those checks for the stimulus, Neil.
Mark, what do you think?
Well, I agree. I mean, it's a growth industry, but I think as the government starts pulling, as the Fed starts pulling money out of the economy, we're going to see contractions in government, and we already have seen some contractions on the state levels. Look at what's happened in California.
Well, that's a good point, but still, when the only guys hiring in town are the government, how do you get growth from that, Tracy?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I don't think you do. I don't think you do at all. It's a bad thing. It just signals clearly that government's getting bigger. And we need our corporations, public companies, to be hiring again for this economy to recover. And we're not going to be seeing that anytime soon, especially if the government keeps pulling employees into their sector.
But, Jonathan, it raises a bigger point about the government crowding out the public sector, right? I mean, and isn't that the big worry here?
Yeah, and Neil, public jobs are all the president talks about. When the president talks about creating jobs, what does he mention? Teachers, firemen. He's never talking about, financiers or inventors. I mean, even today, Ray LaHood, the transportation secretary in the Wall Street Journal, bragging about how he's got 1,000 people filling out paperwork 24/7 for the Cash for Clunkers program. I mean, bragging about that.
Well, that seems to be working like a charm because if they were dealing with the paperwork, they could just write checks because we just had guys here.
So let's just rail against the government, who's the only person who are hiring at this point. The private sector isn't hiring. I mean, what's so bad about the government doing some hiring?
But that's the
why isn't the private?
Because that's the problem.
The private sector is not hiring because of tax
actually fulfill a purpose.
See, the guy. I think that's what we're missing, Mark. That's what we're missing. Kevin, Kevin, that's the sad commentary on our times, that the only folks in town hiring are the folks who we support with our tax dollars, government workers. Now, I'm not dismissing government workers or the value many have to our society, but if our growth is coming exclusively in government-related jobs and not so far in these others, then that's a problem.
You're not building your tax base. There's no way this can continue for the long term. I can speak to this clearly. I have a home in Estonia, too, the nation's capital of government workers. I mean, it's a disaster in the end game. It may seem positive in some ways now, but later on, there's going to be no private sector jobs. There's going to be no tax base. It's going to be a disaster.
And then there's no incentive right now to go. There's no incentive to go to private jobs right now. You have kids coming out of college right now. Used to be they wanted to go work for McKinsey, Goldman Sachs, and the big banking firms, and they're not doing that now. Now they say they want government jobs, and that's a problem.
Well, no, Tracy, yet to see someone say, "I want to work at DMV."
The numbers are skewed more so than they ever been. No, come on, I'm not making that up.
Okay. It's not the government that got us into this problem. It's the private sector.
I think you're missing
something in the first place.
I love you dearly, but you're missing something in the translation here. We're not saying that the government, increasing in jobs is in and of itself evil. What we are saying is if it's the only cat in town doing that, that's not good because you need everyone participating. And if your growth is coming exclusively via government jobs, that's a one-trick pony, and the pony's running out of tricks.
Okay, that I agree. With.
Jonathan made a great point. When you got all these government jobs, that just means a lot more paperwork for the rest of us. And as a small business owner, there's already enough paperwork. You don't need any more.
That's a stereotype.
It's not a stereotype. A job actually must fulfill an economic purpose. I mean, Mark, I know what you're saying.
So why not just get rid of all the government and just hire hedge funds to run the economy?
Well, they do.
We could do worse.
They do a lot better job than Medicare, Medicaid, or Social Security.
We're going to take a break here. Cash for Clunkers, so naturally cash for caskets. I'm dying to find out what this one's about.
This is $180.
It is our most modestly priced receptacle.
Well, can $180?
They range up to $3,000.
Good night, sweet prince.
That's how bad it's gotten. You know, I've heard of cash for clunkers, but cash for you when you become a clunker? Did you hear about this? The number of people seeking government aid for burials is on the rise, according to funeral directors and coroners. Cash for caskets? Jonathan Honig, I guess it was just a matter of time, right?
Oh, yeah. Neil, for giving people jobs and homes and health care, why not a casket? I mean, I'm sorry, but there is no such thing as a right to a funeral. And if people haven't made arrangements, and in my opinion, I know this isn't exactly dinner time conversation, but they should be cremated and tossed out. Only on the grounds that a rotting corpse is a public health risk.
Oh, man.
And it's not my responsibility to pay for anyone's casket after they're gone. I'm sorry.
But, you know, Kevin, what I'm thinking about, this whole government, you know, cash thing and for cars, and I know the washer makers and dryer makers, refrigerator makers, but I guess we've gone full throttle here, right, with caskets.
Well, we definitely have, Neil. I am so happy, though. I finally figured out what all that talk during the campaign was. Shovel-ready project. Here it is.
Oh,
this is the shovel-ready project. There isn't refineries or roads or bridges. It's coffins for everybody.
Well, someone's going to make a killing. Lighten up. I mean, come on. Mark, what do you make of this?
You know, come on, guys. I mean, we've had programs for centuries, back to poor Potter's Field, where we've buried people who are too poor to get a casket or who basically needed to be cremated. I mean, why do we have to be so unsympathetic to people who don't have any money and be so...
But Mark, where do you draw the line?
People like Jonathan who have lots of money.
Let's clarify. Are we talking about giving people
This isn't a new line.
But Mark,
We've done this for
families
centuries.
are for, not the government. The family chips
Some
in
people don't
and
have a
gives
family.
Uncle Johnny a really nice funeral.
But that's, you know, but it's kind of Mark's thing, right?
You're sounding very spoiled and ungrateful.
I'm hardly
Mark,
spoiled and ungrateful. I actually, my stepfather is in the business. I unfortunately am in it way too much. And you know what? People work it out. Families chip in, and Uncle John.
There's a lot. You know, my only issue with this is there's a lot of things that a lot of folks can't afford. And you're right. There is a Potter's Field for the destitute, and they go nameless in that field. And you're quite right. But for the government now to get into the national business then of looking for getting a casket
the government's been in this business for years.
We're not at that point yet. They want it. That says something about when you feel entitled to the government getting you a casket. You are brain dead. Not only dead, you are brain dead, and you know it.
So
what
let's
about
let the
burial at
bodies
sea?
pile
It's good
up.
enough for our soldiers, and it's pretty cheap, I think.
Should we let the bodies pile up in the streets?
Mark, where does
should
it
burn
end?
them and throw them
Dear
away.
Lord, if I can't afford a birthday party for my son, should I go to the government for that money too? That's crazy.
Cash for Chuck E. Cheese.
There you go.
For Chuck E. Cheese. Guys, I wish we had more time, but Mark, you're so disgusting me now. I never want you back again. But seriously, guys, thank you all very, very much. And Cash for Caskets is on. They're doing it. All right, well, remember that nasty letter Congress sent out to health insurance CEOs demanding all sorts of financial information? Well, guess what? The first one responded, and we got it. Wait till you read it.